There are lots of different ways to make money from sports betting or to find an edge in a particular sport. You've probably heard of modeling sports, or you may have heard of reading the market to gain an edge in sports betting. But today I'm going to talk about a different kind of way of approaching your sports betting, and that's through match analysis or game analysis. It doesn't matter what sport. It could be MMA, it could be football, it could be basketball, any sport, just using your own eyes to gain an edge in sports betting. So I'm going to go through my 8-step process that I go through when analysing a match and coming up with some kind of bet in a match. If you don't agree with that, please leave a comment in the section below with any suggestions of steps that I've missed, or maybe you think there's a step that I've added that's not really relevant. So please leave any comments below. But before I get into my 8-step process, just a quick disclaimer on this video and all the videos on our channel. We are not financial advisors. This is just educational content aimed at improving your sports betting. There is a risk of losing money when betting, and decisions you make with your money when it comes to betting is completely up to you. So please be responsible.
It is a scam when you don't allow everyone to operate on fair terms.
We are the Robin Hoods of sports betting. We take something back from the rich bookies and enable our customers to beat them instead.
Step 1 is a pretty obvious step, and that's just choosing a sport or a league that you want to specialize in. Now, specialization is really important because you don't want to spread yourself too thin. You want to become so well educated or immersed within one league or sport that you really know the ins and outs of it. So you're going to choose a particular sport, and I would recommend choosing one that you're already familiar with, or a sport that you really enjoy, that you already watch a lot of. You want to choose a league that matches your betting ability and also that matches your bankroll. So if you are very experienced in this space and you've been a professional for years doing this, analyzing games for a long time, maybe you can then pick a bigger league to look at. But I think for people that are just beginning with this kind of way of finding an edge through betting, you want to choose a league that's quite small, where there's not much information around, because there's less people betting that league. So you could be one of the market leaders, I guess, in that league, rather than trying to compete with people who are betting the English Premier League, who are a lot more powerful and maybe even more knowledgeable about that league than you. So try and choose a smaller league, but a league where you'll be able to get enough money down. So look at your bankroll and see what kind of what would be my average stake size. Am I going to be able to get that down consistently? If I get really good at this and bookmakers start limiting me, am I going to be able to get that amount of money down at a bookmaker like Pinnacle, where they limit you to a certain stake? So maybe League 2, for example, let's just say in England, maybe you can get 500 euros down on a 1x2 bet or an Asian handicap, something like that. Is that enough money for me to be able to I guess gain a sustainable edge through betting that I'm happy to take that profit from, if you get what I mean? It's also important to choose a particular betting market that you want to specialize in. Are you going to be specializing in the totals markets, the handicap markets, 1x2 markets? Maybe you even want to look at player props and stuff like that. So try and specialize in a betting market too. Don't try and bet in every single betting market. And once again, if you are going to specialize in player prop markets, then you need to realize that you're not going to be able to get as much money down, and maybe your accounts won't last as long either. So you really need to adapt your approach based on all those kind of finite details. Step 2 is immersing yourself in that league. So from now on, we'll use the example of League 2 in England. You're going to become an absolute expert in League 2. You want to be following the best journalists out there, the ones with the most accurate information on Twitter or other social media platforms or news sites. You want to watch every single game of League 2, watch every single team. Maybe you want to listen to League 2 specialized podcasts or teams that have specialized podcasts, YouTube channels. Just grab a variety of news sources, watch all the games like I said, listen to like tactical breakdowns of certain teams. Just become an absolute, try and consume every bit of news, press conferences. There's so many different things that you can consume. You don't have to agree or disagree with any of the opinions on everyone, but it's important to get different angles on certain things. So maybe get the angle of a fan of a team versus a pundit who's looking at the whole league as a whole. So yeah, really immerse yourself in that league and get news from different angles. So once you've done a little bit of video analysis and you're consuming all this great news sources, now you want to start forming some kind of opinions about a certain team or certain players, or maybe a certain way that a team plays. I would recommend at this point to create some kind of spreadsheet on Excel and start documenting all this stuff that you're thinking about a certain team. Just little dot points. It could just be a one-off thought that you've had, or a really strong opinion that you have on a team. Just write it all down, and then in the future maybe you can delete it or edit it in a certain way. Get it all on paper so you don't forget it. Start to write down opinions, like I said, on certain players or teams. Maybe there's a certain trait that you're noticing in a team that they don't like to play against another kind of team that with a different style, or maybe they play really well against a certain style of a team. Try to write all this stuff down so that when you get to the point where those two teams play together, or any kind of situation where you think there's a style clash of a certain team or teams, then you're ready to go. Moving on to step 4, and now that you've got your opinions on a certain team or player, now you want to see if that's backed up by the data, or maybe you like to do the reverse way of that, and that's maybe you like to look at the data first, and then step 4 would be looking at teams and seeing if it's backed up by the data. So maybe you have a certain opinion on a player that he's a really good assist maker, or he's creating lots of opportunities for this team. See if that's backed up by the data. Now this can actually be a really dangerous stage of your match analysis or game analysis or team analysis, because you can succumb to a thing called confirmation bias, which is kind of searching for statistics or data that's supporting your opinion. So you're kind of ignoring the data points that go against your opinion and just looking at the ones that support your point of view. So this is a really important part of this stage, is that looking at all the data and looking at it accurately and not ignoring certain parts and saying, oh, that doesn't matter too much. At least this part of the data supports what I'm thinking. All right, we're about halfway through my 8-step process to finding an edge through analysis. So please give it a thumbs up if you're enjoying it so far. Subscribe to the channel. And if you have any questions so far, please leave any comments below. Step 5. Now that we've done all the meat and potatoes of your analysis, and you've analysed teams, you've formed opinions, you've looked at data, all this kind of stuff on a certain league. Now we're going to start looking at the individual matchups of certain teams. So this weekend, you've got the League 2 fixtures out. You're looking at all the fixtures and you're thinking, all right, I favour this team over this team in that match. I think that might be a really tight game in that game. I think there's going to be lots of goals in that game. So you've formed all these opinions on these games. Now I want you to ask yourself the question, why will that not happen? A really important thing to do, because you can get so caught up in an opinion on a game that all you're thinking about is, this is definitely going to happen. I can't see any way where this doesn't happen in the game. Now I want you to ask yourself, why will it not happen? And be on the other side of the fence and pretend that you support the other team, or you think the other team's going to win. How probable is it that they will win the game? What ways could they ruin your opinions on the game, I guess? And this kind of moves smoothly into the next part, which is step 6, where you're going to start looking at the betting markets and start to come up with probabilities of each team winning, or the probabilities of over 2.5 goals or -1 on the handicaps, all this sort of things. Start coming up with odds and probabilities of things happening. I would really recommend that you do this before you look at the odds. So let's just say, for example, you got Liverpool versus Arsenal. What probability is Liverpool of winning that game? Come up with that probability in the head. Is it 50%? Is it 75%? Is it 20%? and then look at how that would be represented in the odds. So if you think Liverpool are a 20% chance of winning, that would represent 5 in odds, in decimal odds. So now you're basically saying that anything that's over 5 in odds for Liverpool to win, you're happy to back because it represents value of what you think is the true odds. Now, matching odds and probabilities is a really difficult thing to do. It takes lots of experience. You probably want to be betting for a number of years. Just because you've seen so many different betting markets, you can understand what kind of odds are given to certain probabilities of happening. So if you're quite new to the space of betting and matching probabilities with odds, maybe the best thing to do is to look at 50-50 markets. So looking at markets that are 1.9 in odds on each side. So the bookmaker represents them as a 50-50 chance of happening, but they've put their margin on it. So it goes down to 1.9 in odds, or some you'll see at 1.83 or something like that once they stick their margin on it. So it's really easy to form an opinion on a game when it's a 50-50 market, because if you heavily favour one side in that 50-50 market, you can side with them basically. The only problem is you have to overcome the bookmaker's margin on the game. So if it's 1.9 in odds on each side, that basically means that the bookmakers are saying that it's a 52.5% chance roughly of each of those things happening. So if you think one of those 1.9 sides is greater than 52.5%, let's say 55%, then you would want to be backing that side. So if Arsenal plus 1.5 is at 1.9, but you think they're actually a 55% chance of that happening or that winning, or a 60% chance, let's say, then you've got yourself an edge there, because they're saying it's a 52.5% chance of happening. So if you think it's 55 or anything bigger than 52.5, basically, you've got yourself an edge. Step 7, let's say you didn't even look at the Asian handicap markets and you looked at the 1x2 markets and you came up with different prices for the home team, for the draw and the away team. You look at the odds and you think, wow, I'm really far off on what the bookmakers are offering. I thought Liverpool should be priced at 5 in odds, but they're actually priced at 7, or they're priced at 3.5, or they're priced at 2.5. My number is just so far off what they're producing. And I'll almost guarantee that every time it's because you've made an error. It's not because they've made an error, it's because you have made an error. There's something you've forgotten about or something you've missed in your odds that you've come up with that they're not representing, because most of the time you're not going to be able to get an edge bigger than 5-10%. I mean, if you can get a 5% edge on a big market, that's huge. So if you're looking at the odds of something and seeing that you've got a 20% edge here, most of the time it's because you've just made an error and you haven't come up with the correct odds. So start asking yourself, what am I missing here that the bookmakers have got right? Is the weather really bad that day, which means there's going to be less goals? Is there a player missing that I've completely forgot about? Start asking yourself all these questions to see what mistake you might have made. All right, step 8 in the process is kind of the post-bet analysis, or maybe during the bet analysis. I think there's a couple of ways you can do this if your edge is through analysis. Did the game play out like you thought it would? Did all the things that you analysed, like the way the team played, or the way that a player might play, or an advantage a certain team might have, did that play out? That's one way you can look at it and just see if your analysis was correct. Or secondly, you can see if the market agreed with you. So look at the closing price. Maybe you ended up betting on, let's say, Liverpool to win at 5 in odds. Did the sharpest bookmaker in the world, let's just say Pinnacle Sports for this one, did Pinnacle Sports, where did they close at? Did they close at 4 in odds for Liverpool and you bet them at 5, which would represent a really good bet? Did they close at 6? Did you get it completely? Did the market not agree with you at all? These are really important things to do, is to look at the closing price for the market you bet on at the sharpest bookmakers in the world, not a Bet365 or a Unibet or something like that. Look at a bookmaker that's booking the sharpest action in the world, because if you consistently beat their price, you will be a profitable sports bettor in the long term. So if you beat the market, it means you're probably doing the right things. If you didn't beat the market, that means you probably missed something, I would assume. So there's something in your process, in your analysis, that you are missing, and it's something that you can work on in the future. All right, that was my 8-step process for finding an edge through match analysis or game analysis to get an edge in betting. I hope you guys found that quite educational, and if you've got any comments, like I said, please leave them below. But please like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to our channel and click the bell so you get a notification every time we post a video like this. Cheers.